class. Welcome back to Strategies of Missions and Leadership Development. Last time we looked at strategy and consideration and seeing some details about strategy. And today we're going to continue on and finish up our look about strategy with evaluation and looking to see if the strategy is sound by evaluating different areas of that strategy. Stay tuned for the PowerPoint.
Okay, class, we're now going to continue with Strategy of Missions and Leadership Development. And this is session 3, Strategy Evaluated. And just some introductory material. It is critically important to evaluate the strategies used for missions. This will involve a lot of questions. And asking questions of things is good. It's always good to see if things are going well or not. And so we'll be looking at quite a few questions here. And these are not the only questions that exist for evaluation. But I do want to show that there are some questions to consider. So some of them are, how are we doing in our efforts to evangelize? Are our strategies and methods effective? Are they meeting the goals? Are there better ways to reach the lost? Is there something wrong with what we are doing? So these are just some general questions to focus on strategies, methods for the goal of evangelizing. Maybe there's some way that you can do something better and a more effective way. Is there anything that's jumping out as not working, and maybe you need to change something there? So in this lesson, we're just going to be looking at evaluation of strategy. So one thing that I want to look at is a case study of Luke 14:28-32, and I'll read that now. And this is Jesus speaking. For which of you intended to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it? Lest, after he has laid the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will begin to mock him, saying, This man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king going to make war against another king does not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to meet him who comes against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks for conditions of peace. Now, in this parable that Jesus is talking about, the context is actually about discipleship and the cost of discipleship. But in the parable, you can see these two scenarios where there's details regarding planning and action. But after doing so, an evaluation can show if the goal was met or not. So the first example is the tower. And in this example, Jesus is basically saying that you can evaluate why you would not be able to finish building the tower. So you sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it. So let's say that when the person is building the tower and they're moving forward and they finish the foundation and everything looks good and then is not able to finish, the people will come out and mock him. So an evaluation would be the person should not have started in the first place. They had enough money or supplies to lay a foundation, but they should have realized that they did not have enough to finish the entire tower. So evaluating the task can show that he went to build the tower and was not able to do it, and so what could have been done differently. Again, this is not the main point of this passage. Just the main point is discipleship, but you can see evaluation is definitely important. And also about making war. So the king goes out to make war, and he has 10,000 soldiers, but he's going to go and meet someone that has 20,000 soldiers. And so evaluating that situation, what does Jesus say? It would be better than when they're afar off that a delegation goes out to seek peace so that there's not some great slaughter. Looking at the task, looking at the scenario, looking at what's going on, and then evaluating if you're able to do the strategy. And if the strategy fails, then why did the strategy fail? What took place? Was it there wasn't enough money to finish a tower, not enough supplies, not enough workers, whatever it may be? And also with making war, not enough soldiers, so you send a delegation for peace. It's all about evaluating the situation and then changing or adapting the methods or the plans or whatever it is so that the strategy can be accomplished. Okay, so let's look at evaluation. And there's 6 areas that we'll look at in this lesson for evaluation. First is evaluating procedure. Next is evaluation of goals. Third, evaluation of methods. Fourth, evaluating resources. Fifth, evaluating processes. And sixth, evaluating performance. So let's go through these one at a time and break it down just a little bit. Evaluation of procedure. When you're evaluating procedures that you're using to fulfill the strategy, this should be a natural part of the strategy process. As you develop the procedures to get things accomplished, it should be kind of built in. Hey, is this procedure working? If it's not, you need to change the procedure or replace the procedure or whatever. But it should be a natural part. Although we are always evaluating, we should set aside time for thoughtful examination. This is almost kind of self-explanatory or simple, that we are doing something and we step back for a second and say, did this work? Focus on the performance and effectiveness of the strategy. So remember, the strategy is to get to where your goal is accomplished. So as you're looking at the procedures, look at what's taking place. Look at the action. Are the actions effective for this strategy to be able to meet the goal? Next, remember it is rare that everything is accomplished that we set out to do. And this happens a lot of times. We have plans, we have ideas, and we want to do all kinds of stuff on the mission or the task at hand, but sometimes it's just we don't get everything accomplished. We run out of time, maybe we run out of resources. So does something need to be changed for this procedure? Should it be scaled back a little bit, or is there some sort of resources that could be focused that way so that it could be accomplished? Again, this is all evaluating the procedure, and if it can't all be accomplished, then changing the plan so that it could be accomplished. Next, or last on the slide, is evaluate performance, not the person. Okay, so the whole point of evaluation is to grow and to do better and to have more success. And so the way you do this is you evaluate the performance. And what I mean by not the person is don't turn it into personal attacks, like setting blame. Well, we didn't get this done because so-and-so didn't do it. Or we didn't get this done because so-and-so did it wrong or whatever. Evaluate the performance, okay? Why was it not done wrong? Why did the person not do it? Were they not informed? Did they oversleep, or whatever it may be? The person didn't perform the task at hand. So instead of just slamming the person, you're actually evaluating the performance and seeing what you can do procedurally to be able to accomplish it. Next is goals evaluation. Number 2, is the goal biblical and part of the vision of the mission? Was the goal reached? Okay, so when we look at goals, is it biblical or part of the vision? So let's say, for example, it's church planting. Well, the goal to plant a church, that's definitely biblical. And is it part of the vision of the mission? Well, if your mission is a medical mission and your focus is to bring medical aid to some group of people, along with the gospel, of course, to evangelize, well, the goal of that mission is actually evangelization through medical aid. If the goal doesn't match up with the vision of the mission, then you gotta kind of reevaluate that and say, okay, should the goal be reevaluated to where it's we're bringing a medical mission with the possibility of church planting, or with a church planter team attached to the medical, or something like that? Should the goal be reevaluated? And there's nothing wrong with reevaluating the goal as long as it's biblical. Now, if it doesn't look like church planting is going to be part of that medical missionary team, then you don't want to bring that church planting aspect into it. The evangelization with the medical mission would suffice to reach that goal. And then maybe a follow-up mission trip or follow-up focus on that people group could be a church plant, or to bring just the focus of evangelization later on. But the goal and the vision have to also meet up. Was the goal reached? Again, that's another one. You look at the goal when you are evaluating this mission. Is the goal reached? Well, no. Well, why not? Yes. Great. So as I'm talking about this, I just have to clarify that regarding strategy, the goal is the big picture. Okay, remember that's the main point. Start a church in a people group. That's a big picture kind of idea. That's not going to happen overnight. So don't get confused with goal evaluation in regards to like some sort of a weekly goal of a method that you're doing. Sometimes your weekly goals might fail all the time, and you just got to change those type of ideas. So for example, a major goal of starting 3 small groups in a year. I mean, that's a pretty big goal because there's a lot of things that have to take place: logistics, teachers, where you're going to meet, who you're going to focus on, what is it you're going to talk about in this small group. That's a major goal, and over the time of a year. So if you go through your smaller weekly goals, let's say it is, and something doesn't work out, it's not that the major goal is bad or wrong. It's just that you need to tweak some of the methods throughout the week to be able to reach these smaller goals that will then reach the big picture. So regarding strategy, the goal is the big picture. Well, if the goal is met, you evaluate this and it's like, yes, we did the goal, it was reached. Well, then we celebrate and we praise that the work that God has done. And if the goal was not met, we have to ask, why not? Why was it not met? Again, there could be successes in there and still not meet the goal, and we can praise God for those successes. But why was it not met? Now it's time for learning. Now it's the learning opportunities, and we do praise the Lord for learning opportunities also. But was the goal unrealistic? Maybe the mission set out right off the bat that the goal was unrealistic. So, for example, let's talk about a medical missionary again. The medical mission to have an eye doctor come and have eye surgeries and cataract surgeries and do eye exams and all that in this people group. Well, if the people group is 100,000 people and you bring 2 eye doctors, that's kind of unrealistic that these eye doctors are going to be able to make much of an impact on 100,000 people. Is that a realistic goal? So maybe it's you bring 5 mission trips over the next 2 years with 5 eye doctors and 10 support staff each trip, and then you're able to make more of an impact in regards to medical missions. And now, of course, when I talk about medical missions, you're also bringing the gospel. I'm not forgetting that. The gospel will be shared. But the point is that if the goal was not met, was it unrealistic? Or was the goal not met because of hindrances? Maybe there wasn't enough finances, the people weren't available, locations, issues occurred, maybe some wrong methods were used. What hindered the goal not being met? And again, this is all through evaluation. But the point is, whether it's met or not met, what we learn we can use for future mission opportunities and through this evaluation to sharpen up the mission. Number 3, evaluation of methods. Were the methods used that were planned? That should be a question mark there, but were the methods used planned? Or was it like we have these methods we're going to use, but we didn't use them, we used something different? Did that work instead? Did they change in response to outside influence? So maybe you evaluate your methods and it's like, oh wait, we had to change this and we had to change that because there was some pushback. There was a group of people that weren't welcoming. The mayor of the town was hostile. We weren't able to get into the public school for a vacation Bible school in a Central American country. The principal wasn't open to that. And so all of a sudden we now have to switch things up and change things because of an outside influence. And so you evaluate your methods, your actions based on that. Did any specific method give a good outcome or a bad outcome? And of course, if it's a good outcome, then we celebrate that, and can we multiply that? Can we do more with the good? Or was there a bad outcome? Is there things that we need to change because of a specific method that was used? What will the missionary do with the information gathered? That's the point, is what decisions will then be made? Are all the methods honoring the Lord, or are there questionable activities? Is there manipulation? This is a good question for some areas, because in some areas of the world, many areas of the world actually, bribery is the way things get done. And so should a missionary get involved in those questionable activities? Let's say, for example, that a missionary wants to start a small group in a coffee shop, and the owner is like, you know what, if you want to do that, you need to, pay me this, and this, and you'll be able to do it in peace. But if you don't pay me this bribe, basically, then you're not even welcome to step foot into my coffee shop. So, so should the missionary pay that? And so now we start getting into questionable activities, maybe unethical activities, or the second part there, manipulation, or things happening to manipulate people to do things, such as if you go to a place that is quite poor and maybe the people only get one meal a day or even less than that, and a missionary comes in and begins to feed people to manipulate a response, to manipulate them to do this or that. That's unethical and shouldn't be done. So always evaluating, are our methods honoring to the Lord? And again, there's nothing wrong with feeding people. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that is it used to manipulate? And then how does the targeted people group view the methods? I.e., what is the targeted people group's response? Let's say you take a mission trip to a targeted people group and you are doing the mission, but one of the things you want to do is you want to show the people back home, you want to show the sending church, you want to show the church that is funding this mission what's going on. And so you take a group photographer with you. And as you're doing ministry, there's someone there taking lots of pictures and maybe taking pictures of the poor people, maybe taking pictures of people. Let's say you're ministering people that are getting their sustenance from a garbage dump, and the person is there with a $1,000 camera, has all kinds of gear, and they're taking pictures of poor people in a dump. That might not be the best way to bring the gospel into a community. So what is the response of the people? They might get upset with that. Why are you taking my picture? Why you're standing there in your nice clothes and your nice camera, and you're using me as your subject matter to be able to show people back home? So that might not be a good way or a good method to show people back home. Now, again, of course, I'm not saying you don't take pictures on a missions trip, but you need to be very careful with that, and you have to be very sensitive to what's going on. It'd be much better not to take pictures and share the gospel and have it being accepted than taking lots of pictures and the people get upset and don't even listen to you. So how does the targeted people group respond? So focus on evaluation of methods. Number 4 is evaluating resources. And this is very important. This is kind of like the guy in the parable with the tower. You want to evaluate your resources. Do you have enough to even do this? So the physical resources, financial resources, is it spent well? Was there good stewardship? That's one thing that mission trips need to be careful of. It's a limited budget, and you go on a mission trip, you can't spend half your budget on sightseeing. Let's say you go on a 15-day mission trip. There's nothing wrong with seeing some sights. Maybe take one day to go see a site, but you don't spend half your budget on traveling to a site and having a lunch out with your team and doing all kinds of things to be able to see the sites with half of your money. So was it spent well? Was it good stewardship? Does the outcome justify the expenditure? That's a good question. If, let's say, one of the methods that is being used is to hand out gospel tracts in a neighborhood in Japan, and it's going to cost you $2,000 a person to fly to Japan. Let's say there's 10 people on your team, so you spend $20,000 to fly to Japan to hand out tracts, and then you hop back on the plane and fly home. How was that followed up? How was that measurable that people were able to, someone came to Christ because of this? And so was the outcome of that handing out tracts justifiable of the $20,000 expenditure? You don't want to spend tons and tons of money without some kind of real outcome to this. And again, this is under the category of financial resources, about being good stewards of the monies that were there. So could it be spent differently? Could it be spent a way that you would be able to measure the outcome to see if it was worth that expense? Again, doing missions is not cheap. It is expensive to do some of these things, but what is the outcome? Does it justify that expenditure? Next, what do you do if it does not meet that outcome? Do you scrap it? Do you change something? Do you try to lessen it? Do you see what kind of deal you could get on airline tickets, in my example with going to Japan, or whatever it is. It's just that you need to evaluate what's going on with your resources. Next is the resource of time. Was the time spent worth the outcome? Because if it takes years and years and years to put something together, well, could that time be used in a different way, maybe shortening the time? Is a change needed regarding that time expenditure? So there has to be a time frame for doing a mission. That's part of the strategy. So you evaluate the time. So it's we're going to plant a church in this people group within the next 2 years. Well, 10 years down the road, and it still hasn't happened, something's going on there. So you would want to reevaluate as you're getting closer to that 2-year mark to see where you're at and what is the time being spent on. And then also a resource is people. The strengths and weaknesses of people do come out, and so is the right person in the right place? And again, that's not saying one is good and one is bad. It's just that if someone is in the wrong place, they need to get into the right place. So you look at the strengths and weaknesses of people, and that does come out as missions goes on. And so you want to make sure that you put them in the right place. Are the people organized well? Is there organization? Because if it's just a mess and people aren't organized and people are just kind of doing their own thing and it's just willy-nilly and not sure what's going on, that's not a good use of your resources. So you want to evaluate that, and if it's not organized well, then you get some organization going on. Number 5 is evaluating processes. Okay, and again, this should be a planned activity, is evaluating the processes of how you're doing mission. It shouldn't just be the question like as you're going along, so how we doing? There should be goals set, strategies laid out, methods that are going to be used, and all of this needs to be able to be measured. So it's not that it's kind of like just out there in the wind, or kind of like thinking about up there in the clouds what's going on and how we doing. No, it's not that at all. It needs to be measured. So for example, if we want 50% of a church plant members to be involved in outreach, how will it be measured or shown that goal was met? So we have a percentage there, 50%. So 50% of what? So let's say we have 100 members of this church plant, and you want at least half of them to be involved in outreach because maybe the other half are spiritually immature, maybe they're just not involved as the way they should be or whatever, but you want 50% of them to be involved in outreach. And so it needs to be measured. Well, how is that done? It's produced on reports. Honestly, that's what it is. There's a report that has to show this. So you have the number 50, so that's a concrete number, and then it's from this certain church plant, and the outreach is the coffee shop ministry down on the corner that the church is involved in. And how will we show that it's met? Well, 50 people are going to be working in this church plant coffee shop ministry, and so 10 people were there on Monday, and 8 people were there on Tuesday, and you continue on, and at the end of the week it shows that 50 people were there throughout the week. Well, that report shows it's measurable. You can actually see it, and then you would continue on with your report to show the success rate, or what took place. Evaluating that, did anyone come to Christ? Were there any lessons taught? Did someone get up and speak in front of the group? Was there some preaching going on the street out front of the coffee shop, or whatever? Sermons preached, number of people saved, how many people were witnessed to? These are reports that can show this, and it's all measured. Also, in this, self-evaluation is important. And again, this limits blame setting. You want to also, as each missionary is involved in this evaluation of the processes, I said up there at the top, it shouldn't just be how we doing, but when you start looking at the mission, at yourself, it's how am I doing at every step of this mission. So self-evaluation is important, and again, that limits blame setting. We never want to really look at ourselves and say, hey, I didn't do this well, I didn't do that well, I could have done this better. We just have this natural bend because of our sin nature to throw the blame on somebody else so that we don't feel bad. but self-evaluation is important. So looking at ourselves and how we can improve. And finally here, evaluating processes is there needs to be open joint evaluations with leaders and workers. You want to have kind of like an open table to this and sit down and be like, hey, this didn't work. I didn't, maybe you're a mission worker and there's several mission leaders there and the mission worker didn't feel supported in some area, such as you told me to go hand out Bibles and I asked for 50 Bibles and you gave me 5. And I went out there and people started coming up saying, hey, what are you handing out for free? And I missed all these opportunities because I wasn't provided with the number of Bibles I requested. And so the leaders should look at that and be like, well, that's definitely an issue there. So we need to make sure we purchase more Bibles, or next time we'll make sure that you have enough Bibles for the work that you do. And so there has to be kind of an open table, an open format to be able to talk with one another. Again, this is all in Christian love. It's never to be like just attacking each other, but have evaluations together to see what's going on in the ministry or in the mission for what can be done better. And this is going to be seen through the evaluation process. And then number 6 is evaluating performance. First off, solid job descriptions are important for knowledge of expectations. So on a mission trip, many people have different roles on mission trips, and so you want to ensure that everyone understands their job on the mission trip. Or a long-term mission, a medical mission for a year, or an educational mission where someone's going to become an educator in a different country, or whatever the task is. Job descriptions are very important so that people know what's expected of them. And we don't want to just set out to judge people. What we do is we evaluate work. I have people that work under me here at the seminary. So I have to do yearly evaluations. And I'm not sitting down looking at the person themselves and just kind of picking apart the person. What I'm doing is I'm looking at their work performance. I'm looking at what they do in regards to work. And I evaluate them. And I have very hard workers for my job here. So really, it's not that much of an issue, but we do evaluate the work, and we want to look at that and not just judge the person or pick them apart. We should appreciate people's work. Again, this is a mission that God has called people to, and people go out there and they give their best efforts serving the Lord. And so if someone's serving the Lord, we don't want to be very critical of their work. We should be appreciative of it. Look for what is the good things. Now, of course, everyone can improve. I can improve in things. Everyone can improve in things. And so that takes me there to the last point. If I'm not doing it right, I would want someone to tell me so I could fix it. I mean, I don't know how you would feel about that, but I would want someone to say, hey, Zach, you're doing that wrong. It's better to do it this way, so at the end of the day or at the end of the task, it's done correctly. Then instead I get to the end of the day and it's like the task is not done, or it's done wrong, and it's just ineffective. Okay, so that's the end of this lesson as we looked at evaluation of strategies.
Okay, class, that's it for this lesson. And we have looked at strategy defined, strategy considered, and strategy evaluated. Next time, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we will begin a 6-part look at the history of mission strategy. Have a great day.